good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Flow State Reactions. I am Istari, and I am here yet again to react to The Lord of the Rings. And this is the behind the scenes. This is the appendices for the Two Towers, of course. And we are now on Soundscapes of Middle-earth, okay? Thank you again for popping in with me. Like, this has been such a long journey, and it's going to be even longer. And I'm just excited to get back into it, okay? All right, you guys. Everybody relax, and let's flow. Okay, here we go. Soundscapes of Middle-earth.
The sound design for
Hi,
these Lord of the Rings movies is incredibly intricate, massive undertaking. You know, you look at the movie,
Intricate, yeah.
The soundtrack is sort of mysteriously materialized, but it obviously doesn't create itself. It's not sound that you record with your microphones on set. You know, every single element of what you hear in the movie has to be created by somebody, piece by piece.
That is
and so all that's a very interesting part of the story of the post-production of this particular movie.
So much of the action in the movie takes place outdoors. It was important for us to record as many of the sounds in that environment as possible. And the thing about Wellington,
I forgot they touched on this in the Fellowship of the Ring soundscape.
It's far enough outside the city so we don't get the traffic and airplane noises.
Oh, good, yeah.
There just happens to be a cemetery outside of Wellington that is the perfect location.
Because we wanted them sort of basically quite clean, free of backgrounds and so on, we had to record at night.
Peter Mills, the first assistant who was setting up most of the recording
I'm appalled.
Notify the police in advance that we're going to be out there so that when the neighbors heard bow and arrow and screaming,
they're at a cemetery?
Sound guys from Lord of the Rings.
Oh my God.
These guys, they've been shooting crossbows now for a good 15 minutes, and you'd think they're
not in the cemetery filming, are they?
What they do well is they aim microphones well.
Just around it?
Even if they don't actually hit the targets, we're right on target with our recordings always.
And some of the best pieces are actually misfires. That one was a little tiny little dowel rod with a cereal box flight attached to it, and the thing just kind of goes and just tumbles over end over end. That's a great sound that you can't duplicate any other way, but it was total accident.
Recording in the cemetery is a really good example of how we were just trying to take a fresh look at what the possibilities are for designing sound.
You lost me. I do not accept.
With the second movie, we're going to have a whole lot more crowds. I was thinking specifically about how are we going to get the sound of 10,000 Uruk-hai.
You could record a few people and double it and double it and double it and double it and create the sound.
But that just doesn't have the dynamic range and the weight and the spread and the size of what a real crowd would be.
That's when the idea of recording at the cricket stadium came up. Pete Mills worked for about a month in conjunction with the Cricket League and set it up.
The crowd were really wound up because New Zealand had batted first and had got a pretty good score. And
you just record there.
I kind of had to stride onto the middle of this bloody cricket.
You had to direct the fans? That is incredible. They're going to be a part of the soundtrack.
Chanting, black speech, the sort of guttural language of the Uruk-hai.
I'm out now.
Explain to the crowd what we were doing and get them to chant the black speech, looking at the words flashing up on the screen.
They had to chant black speech? Peter, you were doing way too much for me. I am so impressed right now.
You know, back and forth. You had them stomping. You know, you had them doing all these different things that could then be used.
Unfortunately, when you're dealing with a sports crowd, they have a few beers, and anything that wasn't full-on shouting, you had too many drunkards in the crowd who would be yelling something completely inappropriate or, "G'day, Peter, we love you, mate." It's like,
I would have done that.
So unfortunately, it was only the chanting.
I would have ran onto the field.
A reasonably short section, but it was enough.
Of course, when Christopher Lee's doing the speech on the day that we shot the film, I wanted to give him something to react to, so I asked any of the crew to gather round in front of Christopher.
They're just doing way too much for me.
They would sort of cheer and clap.
They were so terrible that I banished it from my mind, chose to ignore them. But it is a little difficult to stand behind the camera and suddenly become 10,000 Uruk-hai.
And if you listen to the original recordings that were done in the studio on that day, and then you listen to what the 25,000 people do, it's sort of, you can see what the sound design of a film has to actually accomplish.
Okay. It's so crazy to see the behind the scenes to these very commanding, forceful scenes, because it's just this rinky-dink set in comparison to what we saw.
I think it had that effect on everybody.
Something else. How they were able to make this look so
creating the world of Fanghorn for us before we're introduced to Treebeard is very much part of the story.
You know, we wanted to make it sort of dank and wet and foreboding, but not necessarily give away what's in the forest. But there are some tree growls here and there.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the better vocals is actually a cow, a way pitched down cow.
Establishing Fanghorn was
I
one
would
thing,
not have
but
noticed
then,
that if you hadn't said it.
With Treebeard in Fanghorn, suddenly it entered a whole new dimension.
We knew
that's true.
John Rhys Davies was going to.
You don't even think about how they create these sound effects.
We thought about different processes that we could do to give it this tree-like resonance. And so we ended up building a wooden box that was about 6 feet long and 3 feet square.
So we built all these baffles inside of it, so the sound would have to like travel around in different sections. We could try different things.
Really?
We put his voice through there, the recorded lines through there, and recorded it, and then put the recording through again and re-recorded it. So we could get these layers, basically, of wooden resonance.
Oh, look at that. Look at y'all. Wooden resonance.
Basically, I went and recorded everything I could of a tree. I grew up on a farm, and my father...
Things like that. I need some wooden resonance.
So I went over there, and we actually cut down...
And it was appropriate. Like, you did need some wooden resonance.
Wound up being largely what the Treebeard and Footsteps are made from.
Oh, tree frogs.
So our first pass at that, we played a very complicated, powerful Treebeard, and Peter was like, "Whoa, hang on, it's too much."
And sometimes at these points, I'm just trying different things. Eventually, we hit a point, and Peter's sitting in the back, and he goes, "That's it. Whatever you're doing there sounds great."
Wow, he was really involved in picking the sound of Treebeard walking? Peter! Sir, you're doing way too much. So every single choice was made by Peter. That's very interesting.
For the scene when Gandalf appears as like a white figure, we didn't really want the actual audience to know immediately that it was actually Gandalf.
Peter's idea was he wanted both voices, Gandalf and Saruman's voice, to be molded into one.
So we got both Chris Lee and Ian McKellen to actually read the line. And we even asked Ian to try and do a bit of a Chris Lee impersonation as well to help us sell it.
You are tracking the footsteps of two young hobbits. You are tracking the footsteps of two young hobbits.
Oh my goodness, they're showing us how they did this?
Before yesterday.
I got the lines together, matched them up, and then using the volume graph in Pro Tools, was able to just ramp one in and one out and get them to kind of morph like that.
I put Mike through a little bit of hell, I think, on the stage, because I was like, oh, we got to make that better. That's not working. And then he'd like fiddle a little bit, and then we'd screen it, and I'd say, oh yeah, that looks good. That looks good. That really works. And then we'd play it again. I'm like, that doesn't quite work. Do you think you can make that any better?
It took quite a few goes to get something that actually did work, that didn't sound too clunky.
You are tracking the footsteps of two young hobbits. They passed this way the day before yesterday.
We watched a couple screenings. It was like, you know what? It worked. It took me a long time to figure that actually works.
It did work.
The warg attack wasn't so much difficult as it was a lot of fun and a lot of work.
After what happened with the Wraith vocals on Fellowship, where we had to change them in the 11th hour, we knew that sort of thing might come up again.
At that point, I was thinking, what's wrong with this mix? There hasn't really been any sort of major rethink on any sound design. And then, sure enough, like 5 minutes later, Pete's like, those wargs, I don't know if they're quite right. Like, oh, good. This is it.
It wasn't a start from scratch.
Peter just killing me. He'd be laying down chilling and still doing his work because you know he's tired. He'd be like, all right, let me see it.
Needed to finish that reel that day, so Dave Farmer had a few hours pulling together all these vicious pack of dog sounds.
I actually had to go record myself doing dog sounds.
Really? That's not a dog sound.
You know, you can't record it, you mouth it.
So funny.
Yeah.
I'm still reeling from the fact that they were filming in a cemetery, you guys. I don't know how y'all felt about that, but that got me.
The first time I saw even the early Weta tests of him rearing back, I kind of knew that I wanted it to be a donkey. So I went on the hunt for donkey. And,
really?
Most of what you get is the hee-haw, hee-haw, hee-haw stuff, but you really can't use anywhere unless you're doing reruns of hee-haw. But I did get a few bellows out of the donkeys.
Get out of here.
One sound which I loved and was really glad that Dave Farmer, the sound designer, finally.
That was good. That was nice. Because I'm like, a donkey? What? That don't even make
a cheese
any
grater
type of
on
sense.
A string, and they'd whip it around. And
very interesting.
Especially fond of that sound.
Cheese grater.
One of the shots when the fell beast is actually flying over into Osgiliath, that tail movement.
Yeah.
Is actually the cheese grater switch.
Mike was really happy when I told him that we'd use that sound. Peter's direction from the beginning was
they literally had to create every sound
to actually be part of the fell beast wing flaps.
And there's that one moment.
Everything has to be original to the Lord of the Rings, huh?
And all the other sounds go away except for the fell beast's flapping, throbbing wings, which have merged with the heartbeat of the ring.
Right.
You get that sense of pull. The ring wants to go back to.
The ring has a commanding force of its own.
Ways that this ring changes as it gets closer to home. In the second film, it's much further along in its journey, and it is going home. So it's a far sweeter, more soothing, enticing kind of character. Part of how we achieved that sound was
that happened in the Two
we had a group of
Towers?
musicians involved with the temp music. David Donaldson, Steve Roach, Dave Long, and Janet Roddick, who has this amazing voice. And so we got her to do single notes, which we built into the overall sound design of the ring, so that when it calls, it's very sweet. But the ring is different for every person. It calls to a Frodo in a certain manner. But then when Faramir has his one, because Faramir is more corruptible, it goes full on for Faramir.
Oh, she did that too? Look at you.
Foley basically is all the human movements in the film. So it's mostly footsteps and things like the movement of their clothing. And to a small extent, it also includes props. Foley's normally recorded with maybe 2 artists performing in multiple takes for all the different characters.
Hi, I'm Phil Hayward. I'm a Foley Walker for the Two Towers.
And I'm Simon Hewitt. I'm the same, except I'm better.
That's what you reckon. Okay, we want to show you a bit about what we do. This is the room we do it at. We project the film up on the screen there. We use our various bits we've got down here and all our various props to try and make the sound and make you believe what you see on screen is real.
Well, basically, my job is to record these 2 guys and keep them under control. Mine's longer than yours, which is a bit difficult. We'll do footsteps first, and then we'll generally go back straight away and do the movement for that particular person as well, and build it up main character by main character.
Are you kidding? What? Please stop. You're doing everybody's movements? They didn't mention that on the Fellowship of the Ring Soundscapes. This is outrageous. How time-consuming this is? So you're telling me they don't pick up anything during filming? Like they don't take any of that sound? Everything is added in later?
Depending on the section of the film we're doing, you can see where it gets busier. This is obviously battle up in Hell's Deep. That's their footsteps up the top there, and then their movement down the bottom. It's all their armor.
Look at that machine he is working on. What?
The main thing with the Uruk army is that we knew we wanted them to have this relentless rhythm to them. the rhythm of them just swarming down on Helm's Deep.
Are you telling me that the sound that is coming off of them walking, actually doing it, these extras, is not enough? They have to re-record something else?
But when you actually listen to it back, it actually sounded like an army from the distance.
I really want to know that, because it seemed like it would be enough, right?
We keep this pulsing rhythm going.
I'm sure that keeps some of the sound that is happening in the moment, right?
The most difficult thing from a sound effects design point of view is a battle scene.
Okay, that would make sense.
When you're working on a battle scene is that less can be more.
Mm.
In this particular sequence, I was doing the combat, so I had to do all the impacts, all the releases of the bows, all the whiz-bys that you hear, all the kind of arrows going past, and building that kind of thing up it's really satisfying.
Mm. Arrow whooshes. Shaft sound. You telling me that they put all of these, they edit them all together at once? All the different sounds? Very interesting. Yeah, they layered it all together.
The very last thing you ever do in post-production is the sound mix. And that's when all the different elements of the soundtrack come together. You've got the music, the sound effects, the dialogue recording that you've done.
Okay.
It all has to come together and it has to be mixed in the mixing suite.
Peter Jackson was in London still scoring while we started the final mix in Wellington, New Zealand, which in my opinion was like a ship without a rudder.
And I knew it from the beginning that was going to be a problem. So we came up
ship
with a
without
plan,
a rudder?
basically create
Why?
a virtual private network between the sound effects.
Oh, that's
department
right.
and Peter.
We would do a mix on like the first reel of the film. They would send that across the internet to Peter Jackson. He would sit in his hotel room with a 5.1 speaker system and screen, and he would review our mix. And he would call us up on what's called a polycom.
Which was actually kind of cool because you could be in Wellington and talking to Peter and actually seeing him on a screen and talking directly with him.
And we could sit there and talk about the reel he just saw in the mix that we presented to him.
So, Reel 6, I thought this was generally a pretty good reel, actually.
I forgot that back then being able to do this was like, whoa, so technologically advanced. You know, we're used to it now.
But it should be one of those things where it sounds like the Gestapo.
Well, I mean, it's talk to people in real time from all over the world.
It was kind of ironic
when looking at them.
We had more what you'd call FaceTime with Peter when he went to England than when he was actually in Wellington.
What you would call
By the
FaceTime.
time we'd been through most of the film doing that, he was fortunately back with us, and we were able to go through the whole film one more time with him there, really shaping it.
In that last 2 weeks of sound mixing, we still found time to do a little bit of editing. I think the sound team couldn't quite believe it, but we were at the verge of doing the final mix, and I asked for the editing team to be shifted into a room just down the corridor from the sound mixing stage, and I know that caused a degree of concern.
The sound people looked at us and they wanted to kill us. They did not think we should be anywhere near that mixing stage.
The sound team would be assembling sound for a cut that was changing, constantly changing.
On the Two Towers, we got absolutely crunched right at the end.
We had mixers working by day and night. We had graveyard shift mixers so that the film was being mixed all the time. The sign on the door of the mixing stage was the quote from Theoden, "Fell deeds awake. Now for rap."
Now for ruin and the red dawn.
They going into battle. I heard that.
Towards the end of the final mix.
Even looking back on it today, I wonder how the heck we got through all of that work.
Okay.
We have a very, very flexible team that actually responds quite well under pressure.
Yeah, you have to.
Because we wouldn't have made it otherwise.
Okay. Seriously.
It's been a long day today trying to get the last of the fix-ups done. We started at about 9 o'clock and it's 20 to 1 in the morning, so we've been going a long time. The guys have done great.
Yeah.
Film sounds good.
Good for
Almost
you.
Finished. Time to have a rest and move on to the third one. Yay. 2 down, 1 to go.
Okay. Look at y'all. Celebrating. Okay, another one is coming on. It's circling. Okay, so I'm just gonna stop that there, and then the Return of the King is coming on, so I'm gonna watch the first part of that next. But I just wanted to do a quick outro for you guys. Thank you for joining me. That was so good. I enjoyed every single moment of it, of course. You know, the soundscapes of Middle Earth for the Two Towers. I just forget. I watched the soundscapes for Fellowship of the Ring, but I forgot that they literally have to create every single sound. Right, for every single thing you have to create every single sound. And I remember Fellowship of the Ring, they were at one point using the sound of the plunger for the sound of the sea monster thing, and what was it, card mats or something that they were shaking in order to get, you know, the different sounds. And so here, you know, the things that they did in order to make these different sounds, I loved learning about that. And the fact that Peter was still so involved in the process of even that. It's like, okay, we need more here, we need less here. I really don't understand. And I'm going to keep saying this because it's revealing so much more. It's like, okay, he's involved in this, he's involved in this, he's involved in this. Oh yeah, he's involved in this too. And so it just really is truly mind-blowing. I was a little taken aback by the fact that they were actually recording in the cemetery. Why did they say they had to do that? Is it because they needed the quiet? But, you know, these are people's resting grounds, and they're like doing sound effects in the middle of the night. I don't know. That was just very disturbing to me. But whatever they had to do, they did it. I'm telling you. So I'm just really appreciative of everybody who was involved in this process, you know, from beginning to end. They worked tirelessly. What did Rick say at one point? That he was just full of dread. Was that Rick? That wasn't Rick. That was the other guy. I forget his name. But he was like, I'm just full of dread. I was just full of dread every day. And, you know, they still pulled it off. And they look like professionals up there on the red carpet, you know, for the premieres in the different places. God, I be forgetting that this is a movie and that they are actors and that they are celebrities and they are, you know, playing a role. And so, you know, it's good to see that. It's good to see them get the acknowledgement for all of their hard work. At one point, I stumbled across some information. I think it was the woman who played Arwen, or it may have been Galadriel, where they were saying that they pretty much got paid in free sandwiches. You know what I mean? They just got, just being able to be a part of the movie was their compensation. Like, none of them really got rich off of being in the Lord of the Rings. They just got famous. You know what I mean? You became a celebrity household name, but they really didn't get paid much. And so just for them to be acknowledged in this way, all of that work, all that, everything that they did, everything that they had to endure physically and emotionally, good for them, and good for Gollum for getting that award. Remember the segment on Andy Serkis and Gollum and everything that Andy Serkis went through in order to play Gollum? I mean, the physical exertion that he put into Gollum, because he's doing, you know what, Gollum is an animated character, but Andy is doing these things with that gimp suit on and, you know, the little what is it? The motion capture things on his body, and he's physically running around and banging himself into rocks and slipping and sliding on water, and just so impressive. So I love that, you know, he got his due, that he got acknowledged for that, and he got his award, and Gollum showed up. I loved it. I did. That was funny. That actually really tickled me. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and get right into the Return of the King. And well, the Lord of the Rings journey is almost over. Thank you guys for joining me for this long, and then we still have the Hobbit to go, so that's good. And I might actually shed some tears when these appendices are over, because I'm just really enjoying myself, if you can't tell. All right, you guys, until next time, let's flow.